ladies and gentlemen, I believe I have done this video before, but it's good when we create awareness every day or repeatedly so that people can understand it's not okay to racially profile Jamaican people as drug dealers. It is very wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But before I move on with this conversation, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. Yeah, happy new year. Happy new year. How has been your day? How is the new year? How are you coping on in this new year? What is your new year resolution? Yeah. Either way, let me continue, ladies and gentlemen. There is this one Jamaican scientist. Yes, she's a Jamaican rocket scientist from Jamaica. Rocket scientist from Jamaica. That should tell you how intelligent Jamaican people are. You think it's easy to become a Jamaican rocket scientist? You think it's easy? Imagine someone was raised in Jamaica from a very tough background. You know, she qualified and went to MIT, one of the best colleges in the world, to study rocket scientists. You know, the most difficult course in the entire world. Ended up, getting racially profiled at Boston Airport in the United States of America, because she's a Jamaican. It's quite absurd. It's quite sad, ladies and gentlemen. Watch this video first of all, and then I'm coming back to react after this.
Grandfather's grandfather was an enslaved African. My grandfather was a pastor and my grandmother was a seamstress. On my mother's side, my grandfather picked up bottles for a living and would sell it to supermarkets or anybody that would accept the bottles. And that was his means of income as a single father to raise my mother and her 3 brothers. The income you would earn from that would be way beyond minimum wage. So for me, it's a miracle that he was able to do what he did. And at about mid-teenage years, my mother moved with my grandmother and she sold fruits in Jamaica's very rough downtown district. So those are the shoulders upon which I stood and still stand. And their objective in their time was to ensure that my parents and their siblings survived. And I promise you that was a most ambitious goal at the time in which they found themselves. So we fast forward, I come into the picture, and as I was growing up, I always wanted to be an astronaut. It was through my veins, it was all I could think about, and my parents made me feel it was absolutely possible. Bless them. It reminds me of inspirational stories I hear about people who are disabled, whose parents never told them they were disabled, whose parents never told them they wouldn't be able to do X or Y or Z because of whatever it was they were facing. What ends up happening in those situations? They do everything we do. They drive, they cut tomatoes with their toes, they do whatever needs to happen for them to accomplish their goals. And so given that my parents made me feel this was absolutely possible, as I grew, I continued to grasp and hold on to this desire. My parents, whenever they heard about astronauts, would tell me about it, and MIT kept on coming up. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is excellent. One of my personal traits is that I feel nothing is worth doing if it's not done well. And so MIT was coming up as the world's #1 engineering university. And I said, okay, that's exactly where I want to go. The only thing is MIT accepts 2.3% of non-North American citizens who apply. And there was an unwritten rule back in 1997 when I applied that only 1 person per year gets into MIT from Jamaica. No pressure, right? And so I threw my hat in the ring, but I want to share with you a big part of why I did so. I had so many people who encouraged me, but they never went to MIT. They never even applied. But I remember when I was in grade 10, I had a teacher who was in his gap year and he applied to MIT. And bless him, but he could not spell to save his life. And when he was going through the process, he lifted as he climbed. And when he got in, it hit me. Oh, so you don't have to be perfect. He's Jamaican just like me, and he got in. So that really, really inspired me to apply. At the time I was applying, there was a pair of twins who also applied. And that made me so stressed out because, I mean, admit it, how cute is it to be a twin? Like, you can just say that and that should really carry you far away, right? But as life would have it, I was successful, and I was also successful as the only person to get into Princeton University at the time I applied. And I share this because I feel that when my grandfather's grandfather was cutting cane along with possible other ancestors in the cane fields of Jamaica, and the back-breaking sun was upon him, he would look up into the sun and dream of me. And he persevered because of me. And I feel like I am his hopes and dreams personified. And that is why I continue to push. If he could have accomplished what he did, then I feel there's nothing I can't do. And so those are some of the things that make me tick. One of the most pivotal inflection points I've had in my life was the opportunity to travel to Ghana when I was 17. And we traveled to the Cape Coast Fort. And I'm not sure, has anyone here ever been to the Cape Coast Fort? Okay, I have one person to my right. And we entered this fort where they would hold enslaved Africans for up to maybe 4 months or so before they would leave on the ships of no return to countries like Jamaica. The room is about the size of this auditorium with 2 windows, I remember, no bigger than 6 inches by 6 inches. And once I stepped into the room, there was still a line on the wall, maybe about, let's say, a meter and a half horizontally where excrement came to. And I just want to keep it real with you, right? There was still a scent I could smell nearly 200 years after my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather would have been in the room. And I said to myself, what tragedy must it have been for someone to have to stand there, remain there for 4 months amidst excrement? You don't get a seat, you don't get a bed. And so when I reflect on things like that, I'm so inspired to be not only the best I can be, but to lift everybody else up as they seek to climb to fully self-actualize. So with experiences like that in my knapsack, once I got to MIT, for the first time I was tested. I come from a country that already has had someone looking like me as a prime minister, but no, I was a whole different face. I was the only Black person in the aerospace class of 2002 for undergrad and for grad school. And I will remember it was August 16, 1998, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, heading off to school. I didn't own any sweaters, so I stopped in New York first to buy my first sweater because Boston is a little colder than Jamaica. And the customs officer held back our bags as Jamaicans. My mother and I were traveling. If you're Jamaican, you're more than likely a drug dealer. That was the story then, that's the stereotype then, and it's still a stereotype now. So he was going through our bags looking very excited, like he knew he was going to find the cocaine, and then he'd be able to retire and perhaps live in Jamaica for the rest of his life. In looking through my bag, of course, no cocaine was found, but he found my orientation booklet for MIT. I promise you, all the blood shifted from his face. He looked like he had seen a ghost, and he said, "You applied to MIT? You're gonna go, it's really hard, why didn't you apply to a state school in New York?" It wasn't a rhetorical question. It was as if DNA tests had been done, which confirmed that the Black brain could not hold up to any standard that MIT would hold, and he wanted to save me the embarrassment before going off up north to Boston. And in that moment, I was very thankful that I grew up in the setting I grew up in, but I also made a personal commitment to myself to ensure that I succeeded, because as the only Jamaican in my year going, I felt like an ambassador, not only for Jamaicans right now, but for people like my grandfather's grandfather. And so getting there, things of that nature would continue. I'll give you one more example. 6 years into my tenure, I was walking one day along the corridor, and a member of the janitorial staff thanked me for picking up the bag yesterday. And I said to her, I'm not so sure what you're talking about. She said, "You're the new janitor, right? And you picked up the garbage bag from the room. Thank you." And I said, "No, I'm a student here. I go to school here." And she looked at me like, oh my gosh, she only started working 1 day now, and she's already hallucinating that she's a student. And so, those things really serve to drive me. And as I continue with my tenure, I learned that astronauts have their area of expertise, and they contribute that expertise to missions. And so I committed to finding my area of expertise, which for me was how aerospace technology, like satellite communication technologies, can exist in a symbiotic relationship with other ICTs to bring access to basic human rights for those who suffer the most. And I have a consulting practice where I do that now.
Yeah, man, I wish I could play the whole video, But this video is so very interesting. And she's not only speaking for Jamaicans, she's also speaking for the entire black nations. She's exposing the kind of problems that black people are going through. Imagine, this is a rocket scientist. She's studying aerospace science at MIT College. And she's already getting discriminated as a black person. Someone just looked at her and assumed, oh, you must be the new janitor working in this office, right? No, I'm a student here. What do you mean you're a student here? You're a janitor. You go back to work. You're a janitor. Are you hallucinating? When did ladies and gentlemen, and when she said that there are very few people of her color studying rocket science at MIT, I felt that was very emotional. That was very emotional. That's why I told you that she's speaking for the entire black nations. And I'm also liking the fact that she was also talking about slavery and the kind of things that her ancestors went through the slavery, ladies and gentlemen. But again, the discrimination did not start at the office. It started at the airport. She was having her bags, and the security personnel they were already judging her. The security personnel was already judging her. I know that could be the standard. Of course, I know the standard procedure in the airport. You have to open your bags, and people have, they have to check your luggage. But again, why will you prejudice someone as a drug dealer? Why are you trying to fix someone as a drug dealer? That is wrong. That is so bad. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this lady, God bless this lady. May she become successful every time, because she has made the entire black people proud. Yeah, she needs to go to the history books as one of the very few black immigrants that studied at MIT and became a rocket scientist. That's amazing. Especially she came from Jamaica. This is a very emotional video. This lady, Jamaican lady, she's a rocket scientist. But even in her position, she was still discriminated. She has exposed a lot of things that black people go through. She was at MIT College, and already someone was confusing her with a janitor, because according to this person, black person cannot become anything better than a janitor. When the Jamaican lady told this person that, I'm a student at MIT College, I'm studying rocket scientist, this person looked at her very suspiciously and said, what did you say? You're studying what? Or you are hallucinating? More probably you are hallucinating, because according to this person, black people cannot become anything better. But not for this Jamaican lady, ladies and gentlemen. She's speaking for the entire black nation. God bless this Jamaican lady. And when I share this kind of videos, this is an awareness video, that black people are intelligent people. Black people can become whatever they want to become in this world. They are unlimited people. And discrimination did not end there at the office, at the MIT College office. It started at the Boston airport. I know it's a standard procedure where the security personnel checks in your luggage to make sure that you're not carrying anything that is harmful. But there is a way that someone can look at your at your luggage and even start doubting yourself. Imagine. Someone is looking at your luggage so suspiciously, all because of your nationality, all because of your color. Let me see your luggage. What are you carrying here? Open your bags. Are you carrying any drugs? What do you mean that you're studying at MIT College? No, you're not studying at MIT College. Because in their mind, someone from another part of the world and someone with a certain skin color cannot qualify to study at MIT College. At a rocket science, cannot do that, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the kind of mindset that they had. But this Jamaican lady, gave them her papers. Imagine, it reached a point now she had to give them her papers so that they can confirm that indeed this Jamaican lady, she's not lying. She's an alumni of MIT College studying rocket science. Imagine. They got shocked. Oh, you're a rocket scientist. Wow. Oh, they got shocked. This lady, she has spoken for the entire black nations. She has spoken for the entire black nations, especially when she said that there are very few people of our own skin color that have qualified to study rocket science. She's a very smart lady, very intelligent, very sharp, ladies and gentlemen. And she does, and I know it's 1997, and she doesn't look anything like old. She looks young, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Jamaicans do not age. Yeah, I don't know what I think it's nutrition. I think it's nutrition that is really contributing to, how Jamaicans look, because they do not age. Secondly, they are very intelligent, very smart people. Yeah, they have, look at art, sports. They have the highest numbers of baristas come from Jamaica.